Hello, everybody. Today we're just going to jump into our grading program, which I think I just called grades, and we're going to use arrays and lists to simplify our form and then give it a more robust ability. Because if you remember, up till now, all that we could do is do 3 tests and average the 3 tests. We couldn't even do homework. We left that out, but or let that option available. But now we're going to do more. Yay! Let's first look at what we've done thus far. So if I hit start, there's really not a lot of active parts on here. We'll find a couple that we will have to clean up, and if you remember, probably the last time you've seen this video is we did clean this up. In fact, some of you, if you didn't watch the video, you'll notice the radio buttons are gone because we wanted to simplify and clean up the code and make everything look better. So if I put in 75, 85, and 95 in here and hit compute, it'll tell me my average, my grade, and the nice work. I want to run it again. I can't, yeah. There is a couple of pieces in here that we really don't need. So the first thing, we'll continue to clean this up. And if I go into here, there's no real reason to make it do any of this. As you'll see, what I wanted to do, and we can expand this out for now. It's always kind of good to expand things first. You can always bring them back later on because of the useful piece. But what I want to do is, if you notice, they have test, homework, and so forth. I want to be able for the user to just pick whatever this is and then enter it in. So really, we only need one test box. And we could say, oops, and that is something I didn't want to do. Once you create a method, it's hard to uncreate a method in C#. In fact, you really shouldn't. That's suggested not, but then you leave all these dangling methods. So we're not going to do that. But what I want to do is I just want to use one test box. Instead of calling it test text, I am going to call it grade. And hopefully that's not used. I don't think we used it. And then here we're going to type in, instead of test 1, we're going to change this label, not the name, but the actual text it's using to grade. And then, so when we hit start, I can put a grade in here like 65, and then I just pick one of these guys to compute, if that makes sense. So if that's the case, then the rest of these have to be kind of, oops, obsolete. Because why have 3 boxes that we'll never use? Because we can always just keep entering new grades if we want to. And but let's use this box. Why? Because we could actually use it to add more things to the list, because obviously you have a project, you might have a term paper, you might have labs, etc. We don't know. Test and homework are good to populate the box originally, because most classes have that. And it not only that, but it gives the user an idea on how to use the GUI before they even begin. So if it's just blank, if it's just blank, sure, it might actually be more user friendly, because then they can start with the beginning. But in this case, I think it would be useful to have those 2 labels there so they know what to pick. And in fact, we might even change that. I'm going to take test 2. It's called label 2, which is good, because we're going to change this now to we'll call it type of grade, and we'll say, and I'll put this by it, and we'll call it grade type. And actually, I think I want a colon there, just to make it look for, like there's something continuous. And we can move the grades over. And then the last thing is we need a text box that says, I forget, this is label 3. That looks pretty, that looks pretty, like we didn't use any naming conventions, so that's all right. And, but now we are. So I'm going to say, let's label it change. And well, let's go ahead. Let's make it really descriptive. Change grade type. I'm going to put down here, add / remove grade type. And at this point, I don't quite know where to GUI this up because it's so big, and I'm not 100% sure what else is going to end up here. But we need to keep these together. And again, I probably would want this to be a colon, just so they know that that's where they do it. And we're going to have to add another couple buttons in here too as well. Your average is separate. Compute is down here. Test text 2, we're going to just flat out delete. That's going to cause some problems. The reason being is that we have all of these that we use to grade the test. But here's the thing. We're going to change test 1, test 2, and test 3 into an array or a list. We'll decide in a bit. So let's go ahead. Let's just keep working and cleaning this up. Okay. So let's bring in 2 more buttons. And I'm just going to keep using the default sizes. This is going to be, and since it's a button, we're definitely almost positively going to be writing a function from it, excuse me, a method from this. So let's go ahead and change that to add, or capitalize it, add grade. And I always like to do btn, but I'll put it in the beginning this time. And then I'm going to go down here and just put in the word add. The same exact thing we're going to do here. Text is going to be remove, because we're going to try to use the same exact words up here as down there, because you don't want to confuse people by using a synonym or something like that. And this one has to be renamed, the actual name of it that's going to be used to click on. So we're going to say button remove type. And I already forgot what I put here, so I'm going to check this out. Yeah, that should be add grade, because we're not adding a grade, we're adding a type. So let's keep that. And these guys all have to be put together. So we're going to say, okay, I want to add something, the grade type, and I want it to show up there as a selection. So I can add, but let's say I have too many things, or like 5,000 things, or I misspell the word lab. I spell it L-A-B-E or something like that. Okay, let's allow the user to at least subtract it out and then replace it. Okay, so this I'm going to align roughly with these guys, and they're all attached, and I can move this down here. What do you think? Sounds like a good idea. We can move the compute button. Wow, we could move the compute button all the way to the right, bottom right. That's what usually people go to. And then we'll put this here for now, but I'm going to hold that possibility of change. And I'm going to slide everybody over here so we get a little bit tighter piece. In fact, I want to move this one over here. Sometimes it's good to align these all there. The only thing I'd really like here is I'd like to make sure that this is connected to this. Compute makes sense to be in the bottom right because that's usually where you do the final enter. But yeah, so let's do this. Maybe this will solve our problems. And then we keep it a little closer. I feel like I'm going to eventually have to clean this up for some reason. But for now, this works. You know, it's kind of ugly, but for now, for now it's worked. Let's go ahead and keep it going. Okay. So it's a little bit more compact. So how do we add something to here? And I don't know if you remember this, but what we can do is actually use the term items add. So I'm going to click into here. First, I got to remember this. Oh, test text 3. Let's change that as well. I forgot to change that. We are going to change that into grade type. Have we used that already? I can't remember. In this case, grade type has not been used. We use variations of it, but not that. So I am going to double click into here, and I am going to say, I have to know what this is. Grade, this is LB grade type. So we're going to say LB grade type dot items dot add. And then we have to say grade type dot text. And that should be all that we have to do. So if we enter this, oh, got a small error. Oh, because we have not yet taken this out. Text test. And in fact, what I want to do here is get rid of all this stuff that we've been doing thus far. Because all those things, as you can see, it tried to update all of those as we went, but because we deleted one of those boxes, it's gone. And exception X, yeah, let's give it another try. So now I'm going to put in lab. And if I hit add, it should put lab into our list. So we can do the same thing also with the remove list. So if I'm double clicking into this, now I can actually do the same exact thing because I'm lazy, except now instead of add, guess what we're going to do? Remove. So go ahead and start. We're going to put in lab. Let's call it lab. So we put in there wrong, and then we can also remove it. As simple as that. So now we have a working file. And if all the buttons work, except we do not have a final compute button, because the reason why we don't want to compute anything at this point is because we don't have the scheme working. So let's go into the compute. Oops. And you can double click it whatever. I'm already going to tell you this. We are going to really give this back. We can keep these guys because we like the fact that we have an average that we can call out to, a form feedback that we can call out to, a feedback grade we can call out to, and string grade type, LB grade type to string. We might use later, but and the rest, believe it or not, we're going to all take away except for those titles because we were using the label titles. So it's okay to, well, no, because we're going to end up using arrays. So I'm going to delete this. Feel free to delete all of this good stuff. Actually, I don't want to get rid of average. But all these things that we don't really need, we can get rid of. As you can see, it's bothered by grade and average, but that's because we never end up using it. And if we give it a quick start, it runs. It just doesn't figure out. So what we're going to have to do is reassemble this. Now, this is part one. We are going to have a part two to this. So if I go in here, this is my scheme because all I want to do is have a working GUI at this point. I don't want to have it actually do all that rigmarole of finding your average. That's going to be a little bit more high tech. What I want to do now is just be able to input the right stuff in the right places. So in other words, if I go in and I say grade and I'm going to say 56 and I got it on a homework, I want to be able to put it in. Oh, in fact, we can just use, I was going to say, we can just use the compute button at this point to do it, but we're going to add a whole bunch of new stuff. So 56 would go in as homework. We got, and then we put another one in, call it 75, put it in, put test, make it a test, and then we can kind of populate it. And now we can populate two different things. We can have a test array and a homework array, or we can have a test list and have a homework list and just push those all in there, right? Now, what's the advantage? Well, the tests, if you use an array, we're going to have to use a huge array. In a homework array, we're going to use another huge array. They don't have to be huge, really huge. To be honest, don't have to be really huge because let's face it, how many people have had over 50 homeworks in a semester? Probably not a lot. So we could cap it off. In fact, we could cap it off at 200. That's not a huge array, and that'll work. Or we can just let it push out larger and larger and larger things. The problem comes later because once we do this, we're going to have to correspond these to a grade scheme. And we are going to have to count for the new grade types. So in other words, if we put labs in there, now what does labs do? Well, labs added to the grade type, but now we have to kind of create a new array around it. So we kind of have to have kind of these blank arrays. And that's what we're going to tackle in the next subject. But at first, all we're going to try to do is get these tests incorrectly and the homeworks incorrectly. So come back for that.